Hi everyone, I'm Hanna and you're welcome to my allotment. I'm based outside Oxford, UK, and we have temperate oceanic climate here with mild winters and cool summers. So because the climate is the way it is here, having an undercover growing space makes a huge difference on my allotment. In spring it means I can start sowing seeds very early. And while I germinate the seeds inside my house, as soon as they have come up above the soil level, I move them out into the greenhouse, which means that they have a 180 access to the sky, and that leads to having no leggy seedlings, which is something I hate. Anything you grow inside your house will become leggy, so it's always best, if you can, to use natural lighting, like in a greenhouse or a cold frame or something similar. And the other maybe lesser known fact is that leggy seedlings can come from the warmth in your house too. So actually growing things like peas or early calabres benefit from being in the colder temperatures in a greenhouse in spring. But what it does in spring is it partly protects against the worst of the frosts, but most importantly it protects against the cold winds. And to some degree it protects against slugs and mice and other birds or things that could get at your seedlings. Then later on in the summer, having a greenhouse means that I can get a more than decent crop of tomatoes, chilies, peppers, aubergines and other warmth loving plants that just don't do that well in the UK summer unless it is an exceptional one. It also protects sensitive crops like tomatoes from constant rain, which means that they're maybe less likely to get blight on a wet summer. And then when the tomatoes are finished, I can actually use the ground inside the greenhouse to grow winter salads that will supply me with greens through the winter. So my greenhouse, my little 6x6 greenhouse that I have behind me, has been in use constantly since I got it, which is such good value for money. So I'm hoping if you're watching this, you're also interested in getting a secondhand greenhouse, and I thought I'd make a little video of what to think about and the stages to it and how to do it with as little hassle as possible. We all know that buying a new greenhouse is hella expensive, and there's perfectly good ones available either secondhand or for free online usually, or even from other allotment holders on your plot. So there are a few key things to bear in mind when it comes to buying a secondhand greenhouse. It shouldn't be too far away from where you are. You should ideally go there yourself and take it down so you know how to put it back up again. You need to be able to transport it, and these are long, depending on the size you get, these are long pieces of metal and a lot of heavy glass, so you need to have an appropriate vehicle. And then you also need to be able to build it yourself, to have some sort of practical or a DIY kind of sense to you, to be able to do it without usually the instruction manual, because buying a secondhand one doesn't usually come with one. It does help if you've built a few IKEA pieces of furniture in the past as well. So before you buy one, I would strongly advise that you think about where you're going to put it. So I have bought a second one this year because I wanted to upgrade my tomato growing capacity here. And at first I was like dreaming about it, that it was like a dream and maybe I could swap this one for a larger one. But then I realized when you look around, there is actually quite a lot of dead space on my plot anyway, where you can either incorporate an existing bed into a greenhouse bed, or maybe clear some of that hedging away, and actually it turns out you have a few meters spare that were just being wasted. And then you need to think about how you're gonna place it. So I prefer to grow in the ground inside a greenhouse for a few reasons, but mainly due to watering issues. So I obviously have an allotment and I don't have a watering system here that could be automatic. Sorry, I think that's the rubbish collections coming past. So by having tomatoes grow in the ground, it means that they have a higher chance of finding water themselves. So I need to supply less by watering them. obviously still need to do it mostly every day, but maybe not twice a day if they're in pots in a really hot greenhouse in a hot summer. And then secondly, due to nutrition for the plants. So if you're growing in very well made no dig beds that have plenty of organic matter, you don't even need to feed your tomatoes, right? Because they get enough nutrients from the soil or the beds that they're growing. The opposite obviously is true if you grow them in pots or in grow bags. They will run out of nutrients, and you should be feeding them once a week with tomato feed, right? So for those reasons I prefer to grow in the ground. But I can see why you would want to put your greenhouse on a more stable slab or concrete slab, or just patio slabs if you have spare ones, or bricks or whatever you would have at home lying around. And then you'd have like staging or growing pots in there. There are benefits to doing it both ways. My way means that I'm gonna have to think a little bit more about the foundations for the actual greenhouse structure, whilst if you have a more stable platform, obviously, then that's less of an issue. So what I've done with my new greenhouse is it's been positioned on the back of my plot, which is on a slope, so I had to dig down and level the ground, which meant that one corner I had to dig down quite a lot for the opposite corner not to float in space. You see what I mean? And then to put the actual frame onto something, I'm on heavy clay here, so I know the soil isn't gonna move anytime soon, but to make it a bit more stable base to build the greenhouse on, I put in old 10 by 10 timbers that I had lying around from our garden extension. So I put them down, and then I built the greenhouse on that, and that meant that I could check for level, because I'd leveled a spot and the greenhouse needs to sit level. It meant that I could have like a space where I could just like make sure it was all good and proper before I started building this big structure, right? So those are things to think about before you buy a greenhouse. Where it's gonna go, and then secondly, what size you can fit into that space. And then once you know those things, it's fairly easy to start just looking at the secondhand marketplaces online. There's eBay, it's pretty good. There's Facebook Marketplace. I've bought my greenhouses of both of those. And then there's FreeCycle, and then there's Gumtree, and then there's local pages or Facebook groups and things like that, or just knowing the right people, right? Maybe even your neighbor wants to get rid of their greenhouse, so it's always good to keep an ear out and get the word out that you're looking for one. And once your size comes up, you really have to be checking every day, because they go pretty fast, especially the cheap ones or the free ones. I've never managed to find a free one, but I think that's because of where I live, potentially. Everything has a value around Oxford, let me tell you. So there'll be a selection of styles and materials. Wooden ones are obviously beautiful, but will be a little bit trickier maybe to dismantle and move, because they're less likely to be standard sizes. What I always tend to go for in my 2 occasions of buying a greenhouse are the bog standard aluminium ones like this, because they are quite universal in their make, and the spare parts are really easy to find, and the glass is also standard in most of them, so if you need spare parts, they're fairly easy to get hold of. So once you bought yours, or you're located a free one, what you need to bring with you is a selection of spanners. So usually the nuts and bolts are a 10, but it might vary, so make sure you bring a selection so you don't stand there empty-handed. Make sure you 2 people let go as well, because it's just helpful to have more than one person doing it. And then it's good to have 2 of the same spanner, right? So it's a bit quicker. You should bring a box or a bag to put all the spare parts in so they don't get lost. You need a camera and a large vehicle to fit it all in. So either you can fit it into your car, and it is possible. So this one, the 6x6, I managed to fit into a 97 Golf, Volkswagen Golf, and the big one, which is a 10x6, I managed to fit into my my Ford Focus Estate. you know, so, but I was fully expecting to not fitting, and I would have had to have rented a van, right? But it wasn't necessary. Obviously, first you remove all the glass, right, and secure that somewhere safe, and make sure you stack it standing upright like this. Don't lay it flat, because it's likely that when you start building them up, the pressure on the lower ones will cause them to crack. So have them upright, leaning against something, and not too many. You know, make several stacks. So when you're taking it down, the absolute best way, and this is the best tip ever, when you're taking it down, the pieces that can stay together, so there are like braces, there's like little pieces in the ceiling, there's lots of little bits that are hard to figure out where they're going to go at a later date if everything is in pieces. So try to keep things together as much as possible. You can loosen the nuts and bolts so that it folds and can fit in your car, but as many pieces that are still together will make putting it back up much more easy. So obviously before you start doing that, take as many photos as you possibly can from afar, and then close up on like either side, looking at different, you know, because the front bit is different because it has a door than the back, and you know, if it has windows, to look at how they're sitting there and look at where the braces go. You know, try to get as many pictures as possible so that when you come back to it you can figure it out. One thing I did in my first go was trying to mark up each joint. So like that joint is A, in each piece is A 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? But I ran out of the alphabet. Another tip I've had is to use colored tape for the different junctions or connections. But to me it worked better just to leave as many pieces together as possible and then use the photos to like figure out what goes where. So as I said, be super careful with the glass, because the glass is quite tricky to find replacement for. I think there's a glass shortage, possibly due to Brexit now. Don't ask me why, but so even like buying newly cut glass for your greenhouse can be a bit tricky. So be as careful as you can. You probably will break some of it, but try not to, of course. And then finally, very importantly, don't wait too long to put it up, because try to do it when you have it fresh in your mind. So one thing I forgot to say, gloves is like a must, especially because you're more likely to be doing this in the colder months, and your hands will absolutely freeze trying to get these metal and glass, and obviously you're carrying glass, so gloves is very good. So before you start setting it up, once you have it at home, I would suggest that you, unless you're confident that you don't need it, but that you get some spares in. So with your greenhouse comes a few clips that holds the glass, and then a few other clips that holds the glass sitting on top of the other one. And these are very likely to ping away when you're taking it down, so these are very easily bought on Amazon. I'll put some links below for the ones I got for my new one. And then also nuts and bolts, so it's all aluminium, so if there's any kind of torsion or if they've rusted, I don't know how they rust, but if they got dirt in them, whatever, they can snap when you're undoing them, and also depending on how hard they were attached in the first place. So it's always good to also buy a bag of spare nuts and bolts, so it's all there when you need it. Other things, there's usually wheels to go, and some mechanism to do with the door, which might be slightly different. That might be missing or need replacing. And guttering is very rarely included with secondhand greenhouses. I don't know why. So obviously there's guttering, metal guttering attached to the greenhouse, but actually leading it off from that guttering in plastic tubes rarely comes with, but you can also easily buy on Amazon. And then to go with that, you should probably have a water butt. So having a greenhouse means that it's an excellent opportunity to collect lots of rainwater. So the order in which I did things this time around, which worked really well, was that I first built the frame. So the frame was up and running and in place, and that was a very quick job actually, but it's much easier if you're two people, and we had done it in the past as well. So you need to be 2 people just to support the sides. You can build each side separately and then put them together, but even then I'd say you need some support to do it. And yeah, it is a little bit like doing IKEA furniture, you know, it's always better to have 2 people there. And then I decided to do my beds inside there, mainly because I didn't want to be in danger of breaking any glass by wielding a fork and a wheelbarrow. So I'm going to insert the footage here from my vlog and how I built my no-dig beds. If you're not interested in that, you can skip forward, and then we'll go on to how I put the glass in. I got a few layers down. So first of all, got the cardboard, double layered, extra thick, and yeah, I mean, it's probably unnecessary because it was bare soil it was going on to, but it just makes me feel better, and then it's a little bit tidier. I don't know why I think that. But anyway, I decided to put down a wheelbarrow load of manure as a bottom layer, just to get some bulk in there. It's not finished breaking down yet, but a tiny amount like that won't hurt. It won't be a bad thing. It will continue breaking down. And then I had this bag of Bokashi soil improver, which I bought by mistake, cheaply online of course, thinking it was Bokashi brand. I got that used up by putting that down, and then I had some charcoal or biochar left over. I put it into the small greenhouse when I mulched this one. So on top of the layers I put down yesterday, I added some bokashi. So that is the fermented stage of 2 bokashi bins mixed with soil. So I spread that quite thinly. Yeah, so on top of the bokashi I put in the blooming amazing stuff, which is like a digestate. It's from the biogas industry, like the leftover stuff from the bioreactor. And then on top of that I put in my homemade compost. So I think that compost is probably the one I started this time last year. Yeah, it will be. So it's quite a good age on it. The final layer is the Moorland Gold stuff, the black stuff, really quite fine, so I wanted to put that on top. But yeah, so that's then done, and then I added another layer of cardboard in the aisle, mainly because I don't have that much wood chip, and then I put the wood chip down. And then I removed the piece of wood that I used to shape the beds, and then I just firmed around and made a little sloping side there. So when you're putting it up, I'll insert some footage here of how to attach the glass and the clips. It's fairly straightforward, but one thing to bear in mind, and which is why I ask you to get some spare parts, is don't scrimp on the clips. So this is what is holding it in place. So any kind of wind, stronger wind, you know, you're not building the greenhouse to withstand a sunny day like today, right? You're building it to withstand the storms that we might have through winter, and even some in the summer, right? So make sure you put in 4 clips per pane, a square pane, and then maybe 2 or 3 for the triangle ones. Try to build it on a calm day. If there's a storm brewing and you're not 100% sure that you're going to manage to finish it, don't even start. Make sure you got a long, nice weekend ahead of you to get it done, and so you don't stress about trying to get it half done. And then just having one pane out can mean life or death for your new greenhouse, and there's nothing worse than seeing it all in shattered glass everywhere. So with the glass, it is really, really heavy and tedious and dangerous, right? So take your time, but be confident. If you start to dilly-dally with the glass, or if you feel any way unsure or insecure, then you're more likely to break it. The thing to know about glass is that it does not bend. So if the frame for some reason is not straight, the glass will tell you, right? The glass is perfect, usually 2 foot by 2 foot for the square bits, and usually around the top of the greenhouse it might be a slightly different size. It wasn't on this one, but it was on the other one, right? but they will tell you, right? So if you feel resistance, don't force it, because then you're likely to break a corner or even the whole pane, right? So take it easy with confidence. So I started doing the sides around, and I did the ceiling last, or the roof last. If you want to, obviously, maybe start with the roof, and then you're less likely to lean onto the sides. I don't know why I started with the sides, but that's the way I did. So I was pretty lucky that I had, because it's on a hill, I'm kind of have fairly good access to the roof. But otherwise it's good to have like a little step ladder or something like that to reach up to get all the clips in. So try to think, when you're doing the roof, try to start in the center, and it means that you can access to put the clips on the glass either side from inside the greenhouse, and then work your way out, and then the side bits you can sort of reach over from the side. The one thing that is pretty tricky is the windows. So on the new one, it was fairly hard to get. So it sits with one pane first, and then like a little metal support sits across that pane, and then the window sits above that. So the windows are usually, you have to slide them along the roof to keep them in place. So you have to really have a tall person to do this. So maybe the first thing that you do on the roof is to put the window in, just to make sure you have access to reach and get it into place. So what do you do if you have some broken glass? Well, I'll put in some footage here of me sorting some out. Right, so it is rather likely that either some of the glass is broken when you buy your secondhand greenhouse, or it might break when you take it down, or it might break in the car, or it might break when you take it from the car, or it might break when you're putting it up, right? So the likelihood of glass breaking is very high. So if you can find a greenhouse with spares, that's great, but also when you're looking to buy one, keep an eye out for someone who's selling or giving away greenhouse glass in different sizes, because you never know what you're going to need. However, it's not always easy to find, so what you can do, so I have a piece here, my last piece that I need, it is broken into two pieces, and let's see if I can pick it up, right? So it's quite large crack down the center instead of a million pieces, and that is a good candidate for temporarily patching up until you can find an appropriate sized piece. So it's better to do this than to leave it with one pane missing due to wind damage. So a lot less wind would need to be present for it to cause damage with a whole pane missing. Then, like, it's not going to be as strong as a complete pane of glass, but it'll be stronger than nothing, right? So obviously not a long-term fix, but it will work. And to do that, you need an outdoor glass repair tape, and you can find it on Amazon. I linked this one in the video down below. Very easy, sorry, affiliate links, all of them are affiliate links. So what you need then obviously is a clean and dry surface to attach it to, and it's fairly easy to work with. It doesn't need to be perfect. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna clean off any debris, and I haven't done this year because I couldn't be asked, but it is a good idea to clean the glass before you put it on. But yeah, there's something to be said for either way, because you risk breaking it while washing it. So basically handle it as little as possible, maybe, is a better advice. And you know, it's a greenhouse, it doesn't need to be pristine, especially if it's on an allotment. God knows it's not going to stay that way. Alright, so I've cleaned that surface. I'm going to wipe it down. Yes! So it's squeaky clean. And This sort of tape is very, very adhesive, so you don't need to worry too much about it being good. So being super clean. What you want to do is line your pieces up as well as you can, and having a flat surface obviously makes that easier, but finding flat surface on my allotment is nigh on impossible. So we'll do as well as we can. Right, there we are. Can you see me? So it's holding together fairly well. However, I would advise, this is for a roof panel, so I would advise laying it this way up rather than this way, where it can collapse inwards with some pressure. It's less likely to happen if you lay it this way. So now my greenhouse is built, my beds are built, and it's starting to get hot in there even now, and it's only been built a couple of hours, right? So there's some kit now that I need to get. I need to get some plastic guttering, I need to get some sort of water butt collection system, and then most importantly I need to get these automatic window openers. So they're working, there's a piston inside it that responds to the temperature. So it's a liquid inside this piston that expands and contracts depending on the temperature. So it pushes the window open when it's hot, and then it contracts in when it's cold, closing the window. So that means that you're less likely to scorch your plants, making them wilt prematurely because it's just too hot in your greenhouse, and it can get really hot really quickly, and most plants don't do well beyond 30 degrees. Even tomatoes and chilies and peppers, right? They kind of stop growing. They might not die, but they will halt their growth beyond 35 degrees. So it's best to ventilate as much as possible when it's that hot. So that's what I'm gonna get, and then additionally I'm gonna get a thermometer just to keep track on the temperature. Also, it's good to get one with a max and a min, and I'll put the links of what I'm gonna get in the description here. And yeah, I think that's it. I think I'm okay for staging, but if not, I will look into getting some more of that. And then roll on tomato season. So I have just sown my tomatoes to go into my new greenhouse, and it is super exciting. Anyway, I hope you've found this video helpful and that you feel encouraged and empowered to get your own greenhouse. Let me know if you have any more questions or if I can help you. I know that I didn't go into too much detail of how the structure goes together. That's because I found they're all slightly different. But if you need help, you can contact me with pictures of your bits and bobs, or I can send you pictures of what mine looks like, and that should help you figure out how to put it back together. Anyway, if you've been watching this far, I'm really, really grateful. I know it's a pretty wordy, long one. I hope at least it was interesting. If you want to know more about what I get up to on a regular basis here on the allotment, I'm running a vlog project this year where every Friday I upload what I've been up to that week. So check them out. I'll insert the playlist here. Otherwise, if you're new here, consider subscribing because it all really helps. So I hope to see you soon, and take care.